We got to mix the mission statement with the idea that everything is relevant. Our stand-up is relevant. Living in New York is relevant because it's all how to deal with day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Is that generally it? Yeah. And how the littlest things in the world ruin your whole outlook on life just because of one day when it's really not that big of a deal, but we've got to find a way to deal with our fucking anger, basically.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Power of How. I'm Matt Fulcheron. I'm here with Daniel Torado.
What's up, Matt?
Brennan Tassif.
Hey.
Woo! Doing a show about positivity. Everyone's feeling a little beat down. I don't want to say negative, but
Tired.
not quite positive.
No, we're
Not beaming. No energy. We'll see if we can get there. Brennan.
Yes.
Holy shit. Your world has completely changed
Yes.
over the past 2 weeks. First of all, congratulations on your one-man show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
You guys both came. That meant a lot to me. I really
We
appreciate
great.
it.
Both went, and I know I enjoyed it. And
Thanks, buddy.
well,
I enjoyed it too.
I'm leaving it open to you. I can't say we enjoyed it. I don't want to talk like a couple yet. We really liked it. We liked that movie.
We did.
I know, it's just funny when couples start doing that shit. We thought the salsa was a little bit sweet. No, it was great. It was the first time in New York City I felt like I had a crew. I know that's not what this is about exactly, but I felt like we were there supporting Brennan, me and Daniel.
Hey, wait, we now?
Yeah.
Now
I
it's
can
sweet.
speak for
Now
both of
it's
us.
sweet.
Now I can speak for both of us. No, I know I felt like I was rolling deep
Yeah.
in New York City. And maybe
Yeah.
if we had like 2 more guys, we could get in a fight with somebody.
And not even think twice about it.
We wouldn't have to depend on Brennan so much. 2 more scrappers.
Yeah. Yeah, it meant the world. You guys came out. The show was a big success, all things considered. It's weird you don't think about how much goes into it.
Yeah.
Because, I just put the show together myself. And then, at 5 o'clock, I get to the theater. I start setting up. And then the time is going to keep ticking away.
Yeah.
So then by 5:30, 5:45, I'm like, oh, this is happening.
Yeah.
The videographer shows up. The photographer shows up.
Yeah.
My director shows up. And I'm like, but it's on me because it's my – so I'm putting people in places and stuff.
Yeah.
And my dad and my stepmom were there, and they came a little early, so it was cool because as they were sitting there, I was moving people around, and my dad was like, "Look at Brennan, he's just
Look at him go.
look at him go."
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun. It was great. We did 2 shows. First show was a little emotional, just because my family was there and stuff, and some of the stories I talk about can get kind of sad. But the second show was definitely the one you guys came to. Was a little loosey goosey.
It was the party show.
Yeah, it was
about
fun, though.
sobriety.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, the show is called
It's called X Drinking Buddy, just like the
Ex-Drinking
podcast.
Right. And it's about your dealing with alcohol and finding sobriety.
Yeah.
And then everybody that came from all your work friends were filing in with double fisted.
Yeah.
Double fisted, ready to drink.
Yeah.
And I was like, it's 2 different ways to look at it. It's like you don't want it to be you don't want it to be strict or have any rules.
Yeah, absolutely.
You want it to be fun.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, it's so funny because it really is about how much alcohol can
Destroy your
get
life.
a hold of you
Right.
and destroy you. And I knew that they better get them sips in before the story starts.
Yeah. Or else they're
Because
gonna
the
feel weird.
last thing you want to see you want to project is turning that Corona bottle upside down in the middle of these stories.
Yeah,
Because it's
yeah.
such an intimate theater. And they were sitting up front.
Yeah, it was interesting because there's a lounge at the Producers Club where we shot it. And my first thought was, oh, that's cool. People can come and hang out and get some drinks and stuff. And then at the first show, nobody came in with drinks or anything. And I was like, oh, do people think – because that's how I've lived my whole life in sobriety is I don't care what other people
Right.
do. In fact, I encourage it.
Yeah.
Because there's parts of the show, and you guys saw it, and the second show, because it was a little looser, got a lot more laughs at the parts that I wanted people to laugh at, which was good. But it's just that weird thing where it's I don't – this is a show about what I went through.
Right.
And, just statistically, alcoholism only affects between 8 to 10% of the population. So nobody in this theater is probably going to go through the same thing.
Right. It's as if you were doing a show
Yeah.
about a car accident.
Yeah, exactly.
You still expect people to get to the show.
Yeah, you say, yeah. Perfect
Right.
analogy. Because it's like when people get there, the second show, people were going into the lounge. And I actually was relieved because I was like, oh, because you know what this business is all about. It's about making money for the venue. So I was like, oh, thank God people are buying drinks.
Right.
So next time I want to do the show there, maybe they'll give me a little discount because I bring people get drinks, they buy stuff. Like, hey,
Right.
So I was really encouraged. And then the second show, it is because I don't ever think about it. Because I've been sober for coming up on 5 years and everything that I went through to get sober, it never even registers in my head. Like if I go out to dinner with someone and they order a drink, I don't even think about it.
Right.
But people can be very like touchy. They're like, "Oh, are you okay?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Yeah, I'm fine." As I said in the show, if I wanted to drink, it's gonna be me. I'm gonna do it.
Is it okay if I do this beer bong in front of you, Brennan? Are you gonna be okay with that?
They're like smashing shots, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, let's go, baby."
I don't
Makes
think
you more interested.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there were some parts that I wrote because a lot of my bits I do on stage as far as stand-up are derived from my experience, like all of us, the stories and stuff like that. And so then there were those bits that I wrote out the full version of the story for the one-man show because I could get more intimate and I could get longer with it. And I was like, oh, these will be funny because I've done them on stage a million times and they're funny. So as the longer story, it's going to be funny. And in the first show, I was like, oh, is this not funny? And then in the second show, it was hitting, and I was like, oh, thank God. Thank God. I was like, I thought these were funny.
Family can be tight.
Yeah.
You said the family was at the first show.
Yeah.
Family can be like, they can want to like control it.
Yeah.
And so they can't relax enough to
let it go.
Yeah. They're just.
Well, and I also had an interesting revelation. Both my sisters came with their husbands, and everyone enjoyed the show. Everyone liked it. But my twin sister, who has 2 small children of her own, she was just like, hey, I know you didn't obviously bring anything up, but you might want to like think about how you kind of word some of the stories. And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, eventually you're going to like have kids and stuff. And like, that's going to be a weird. And I was like, yeah, I guess I didn't think about that.
Well, yeah, there's always that when you're in this modern age of oversharing.
Yeah.
I mean, look what we got to do just to get on stage at the Funny Bone in Syracuse.
Yeah.
One weekend a year, we got to fucking tell. We got to keep people entertained all the time. And I know, like, all the stuff I put out, vomited all over the internet, including my stand-up. My nieces and my nephew are going to look at one day and be like, oh, my God.
Yeah.
My uncle was a fucked up guy.
But I think that's what makes you like an artist or in whatever field, but brave. Like when you look at Richard Pryor, or I think Richard Pryor is the perfect example. That you just don't care about what people think, and this is who you are, and your kids end up loving you eventually, or appreciating eventually who you are, and the authenticity on stage, as opposed to just always being clean and just being a dick off stage.
And that's not what your kids are in a ride for anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, I like my dad because he's a
Right.
good comedian. They like you. If they like you, it's because you were a good dad.
Yeah,
Yeah, of
absolutely,
course.
100%.
But there's also a message, I think, as a parent that you don't want to project, or you don't want your kids to see. Like, I get very sensitive or picky now. I never had those issues before.
Yeah.
But like, what am I going to talk about now that eventually, my kids will see? Or, I run jokes by my wife now. I'm like, I have this joke about having a threesome with my baby, well, because she's breastfeeding.
Sure.
Right,
yeah. It is good to explain that.
Yeah, I was going to say, out of context.
Right, exactly. So I had this discussion because there was a taping with Access TV at Gotham Comedy Live, and I'm like, this is going to be out there. Are you okay with me talking about this? Because it's a very private moment. And she was cool. She said, yeah. But now I really start second guessing, what am I putting out there? And I think it takes a lot of vulnerability and courage, and it is weird, especially when they hit their teenage phases. Like, whoa, that was dad. Maybe that gives them a green light to behave any way they want.
Right.
But at the same time, I think eventually, as they grow older, they'll come to appreciate the truth behind what everybody's going to be living. Right.
Yeah.
So it does take.
Well, it's interesting
Courage.
you said the word brave because someone had told me that, and I kind of shrug it off because when people say that, especially to me, I'm like, there's nothing I do that's on stage that I would consider brave, and just because, I'm talking about getting drunk and throwing $200 up in the air at a strip club, but I had someone had said that to me. They said, that's really brave that you talk about that stuff. And I shrugged it off and I didn't think twice about it. And I was like, oh, that's dumb. Like, I'm not brave. Like, that's not what it is. And then they made a very good point, actually. They said, no. Like, the fact that you're going to talk about that kind of stuff and be so open in front of the people, your family, our families, where we try to conceal all the darkest parts about us because we want to be perceived, especially by them, as like these great people.
Right.
And I was like, oh yeah, I never thought of it like that. I always just thought this is the story. And the last thing I wanted to say about it, because I thought it was really interesting, I think it benefits like my nieces and hopefully one day my kids, where if they even have a slight inclination that things are getting a little out of control, they know exactly who they can call.
Right.
Because they've heard all my stories.
Yeah.
So if they do something dumb one day, I feel like it's putting all this out there is a great opportunity for them to be like, who we got to call? Uncle B.
You are going to be picking up so many people from the police station.
Yeah.
Because they ain't calling
They're
your
not
sister.
calling. They're not calling my
you.
twin. Yeah.
But you know what? I think it also benefits your folks.
Yeah.
I think it also benefits the older generation. Like, I'm sure your dad's. Did you have a conversation with your dad about the show?
We talked about it before. No, not after.
Not after.
After they kind of just gave me a hug. They said they liked it, and then they kind of went on their way. But before because I told them it's kind of dark and stuff like that, and that was the thing that I wasn't aware of. And my twin sister, being a parent, kind of opened my eyes. And Daniel, you can shed some light on this because you're a parent. But I was sharing the stories just from my perspective because this is the things that happen to me. And that's the one thing that's hard to explain to people about depression is when you have people in your life, you still feel like you don't have anybody.
Right.
And so it's one of those things where it's just like alcoholism, where they go, well, just don't drink, like just stop drinking. It's like that it doesn't work like that.
Why don't you quit eating food? Tell me how that goes.
Yeah.
So my twin sister brought up a really good point where she was like, hey, just so you know, like, dad might be a little affected by this only because you're talking about all the stuff that you went through. And it's almost like you went through it alone. And I was like, well, that's because in the moment, that's how I felt. Like I was all alone.
Right.
Which was a good point because I don't think any parent wants to feel like, they're not there for their child, which wasn't the case in my story. I didn't want any help. I didn't seek any help. I didn't ask anybody for help. I was going to handle it my fucking self. And so that was an interesting perspective too. And as a parent, I'd like to get your take on that. If you heard, 20 years from now, one of your kids telling a story about like, oh, this happened to me. And then as a parent, you being like, well, wait a second.
I want to say one thing that my friend Randy told me when it wasn't the same exact thing by any means.
Yeah.
But I think about 20 years ago, maybe even longer, I showed my mom a stand-up tape. She liked the first stand-up tape. And then when I showed her the second stand-up tape, she was like, I didn't really like it. There was a lot of cursing.
Right.
And you talked about drugs and blah, blah, blah. And then I told my friend Randy about it. He goes, dude, if your mom likes your stand-up, it's probably not that good. And we don't make these things for our parents.
Yeah, that's true.
We send our parents a card on their birthday.
Yeah.
We treat our parents differently.
Yeah.
We don't have these things. It's not going to do our parents any good to know this shit.
Yeah.
It's for other people. It's
well,
for strangers.
And that's the thing is I had a lot of people come up to me after the show and they go, oh, that was so powerful. That was emotional and that was so good. And and I felt great. But at the same time, for my twin sister to be like, hey, dad might not be thrilled. I was like, oh, yeah, I didn't think about it.
I'm not a fan of that when family members tell you how other family members might feel.
Oh, yeah, that's true, yeah.
Like, I didn't invite, like, I had an engagement party, but it was mostly for my in-laws, and that's, like, their thing.
Yeah.
And my brother and his wife live in San Francisco, and my dad's like, Katie, my sister-in-law, Katie was upset you didn't invite. I'm like, let Katie tell me that.
Yeah, that's okay.
Let
That's
Katie
great.
tell me that.
Just as a whole platform like this, the whole show about positivity and stuff. That's a great way to look at things because like I said, I had that conversation after the show and a few days after, and I'm gonna live by that. Like, if someone's got a problem, let them call me and tell me.
Just because they're involved doesn't mean you can control how they feel.
Yeah, that's exactly how I feel because, like I said, I've had other family members reach out and go, hey, you might have upset some people, you might have this. And I go, then they can tell me. Because the story's completely, and again, just as I gotta stop saying as a parent, Daniel.
No, but you know
But
what?
that's
I
the
no,
thing
but
is, like-
to answer your question, I think I would feel like if I heard my kid, I get your point of view, and I get your sister's point of view. Like I would feel like I somehow failed my kid if I felt like they were put in those circumstances, feeling very alone. Like my job is to be there for my kid.
Yeah.
So, and I get that you don't want any help, or maybe you didn't want to get them involved, and I think as kids we don't want to worry our parents.
That was the biggest thing. Was
so
I'll
it's
handle
that
it.
delicate balance between, it's really hard to be open with your folks, especially with that generational gap.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once I had dinner with my whole family. Like again, my mom Polish, raised by like she went to school with nuns. Nuns were her teachers. My dad went to seminary, to study to become a priest.
Wow.
In Peru, both immigrants, and we're at this dinner party with the whole family, uncles, aunts, everyone, and my everyone's getting drunk. My uncle's like, "Hey man, did you ever smoke weed?" And I'm like, and I was just living in New York City like for 3 years alone.
Uh-huh.
And I had this sense of complete freedom because, when you're away from your folks, you feel like you grow up a lot.
Yeah.
That you're no longer dependent on or afraid of them. And you kind of feel like you're a grown up. And I had to make a very quick decision on whether I'm going to be truthful or I'm just going to be full of shit for the rest of my life with them.
Yeah.
And again, all my family, Peruvian, like hardcore, different,
Catholic,
Catholic,
Catholic.
and judgy, and I said the truth. I said I did, and then my mom's face, man.
Yeah.
Oh my
Well,
God.
that's always the hard part. Is
But you know what's crazy? Just to finish the story, as I opened up with my own truth, next thing you know, I hear my uncle say, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, me too. I tried it." And then my other uncle, "Yeah, I smoke every now and then." And it's like, and it gives that when you are truthful, you allow other people to be truthful. But again, my mom was devastated, and my dad, we took a walk that night, and he's like, "Yeah, your mom, she's old school." I'm like, "How about you, Dad? You're super old school too."
Yeah.
But we really bonded that night, and I really broke a barrier with my mom, as painful as it was. 'Cause she didn't speak to me for like days.
Yeah.
Right.
She was humiliated, that her little boy, would do such a thing. But I was really, I don't want to say proud, but I was satisfied and happy that I was able to, just to not be full of shit
Yeah.
with my folks.
Which, by the way, like either way is a good choice, I think.
Right.
To really say that is awesome. To lie for their benefit, also awesome.
Yeah.
Right.
But me, I respect what you did more.
Yeah.
One of my favorite moments
Right.
in my life, and it was like only like 3 or 4 years ago, is I got some weed in Cleveland,
Right.
and that alone was a fucking
Right,
great
right,
experience.
Right.
But when I was leaving to get on the plane, I spent the night at my aunt and uncle's the night before I left town.
Right.
And my aunt had just broken her leg or something like that. And I knew I couldn't get the weed on the plane. So I left her the weed with like a note. Like, not like
Right,
something
right,
like
right.
we really discussed.
Right.
And then, I didn't know how it was going to go over. But I was like, well, I'm not bringing this on the plane. So I'm going to give it to her anyway
Right.
because she just had an injury.
Yeah.
And I got a text like the next day. It was like, thank you. I feel better already.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, and that's the coolest thing is like when you are truthful, you give what's the line, the poem? It's in that movie Coach Carter, but
Roses are red,
When-
violets are blue.
when you let your light shine, you give others around you permission to let their light shine
Right.
as well.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things where it's
Yeah.
by telling the truth, as painful as it can be, and it was painful for me. I mean, you guys saw me on stage.
Yeah.
There's parts where I'm crying and
Right.
I get really upset and emotional, and it's like, but by doing that, it's the ultimate freedom because it's like I don't have anything to hide from anybody, and you can feel whatever way you want to feel about it. But this is what happened,
Right.
and so I think by doing that, like you said, it's not, I didn't make it for, my sisters or my parents or anybody like that. I made it, and I even say this in the show, I made it for the people who are struggling and who might not be alone, but they feel so alone. Like, that's the point.
And it can affect your family that way, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, they might not be open about it, but they might look up to you a certain way, and they might even change their lives based on
100%.
what you said.
Yeah. So, and that was the whole point of the show. And it went
big time.
It went super well.
I think they may not even be aware of how deep that affected your dad.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, if he can do it,
Yeah.
and I sure as fuck can do it.
Yeah.
Because this guy didn't know how to wipe his ass at one point.
Right.
It's fucking
Around
guy
age
over
25.
here.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, really great stuff, man.
It was awesome. I appreciate you guys coming. It was great. Check it out. Coming to a Fringe festival near you, hopefully.
Hell yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Bravo.
And then Daniel
Tell me.
turned us on to another. Daniel's got speakeasies.
Oh, yeah.
Hideouts all over town. And I'm not going to say where this restaurant was.
We can.
Because I don't want to see your ass there. But this restaurant was too awesome to be half empty.
It was so hard to find.
It's Monday night. It was a Monday night.
Yeah.
It was a
That's true.
Monday night.
It was
That's
a Monday
true.
night at like
Monday
10
night.
o'clock. But you guys told me where you were. And
Yeah.
I went over there and I'm like I'm looking.
Yeah.
And then I see like this little sign.
Right.
Uh-huh.
I
It's
go
so
in.
incognito, right?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
I thought I passed it like 3 times. And I go in there and I was like, holy shit.
Well, the best part too was we walk in and it looks very typical of the neighborhood. It looks like a place where you'll get a $9 beer.
Yeah.
Is how I describe these
Right.
places. Very nice bar, the whole
Swanky
bar
stone.
room.
Yeah.
And then you say something to the guy in Spanish, and then all of a sudden we're going downstairs, which felt the same as going through the kitchen in Goodfellas. And then all of a sudden there's this huge room in an area where
Yeah.
all these restaurants are packed and real estate is expensive.
Booming.
And
right.
then all of a sudden there's this huge place where you could have a wedding reception or
Right.
something.
Pretty much.
And I was like, oh, shit. This is why we play the game.
Yeah.
This is why it's good to be in New York
Right.
City.
Yeah.
There's a million stories like
Yes.
this. And when you're in the middle of one, you're like, oh,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I walked in and I said, "Oh, we're meeting for," because I honestly thought it was going to be like a bar or like some
Like a taco
just-
place.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
And I go, "Oh, we're meeting some friends." She goes, "They're here now?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Okay, go ahead." And I turned the corner and I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah. Well, you know what else is funny too is when you were like, we were gonna go 1 of 2 places, and you're like, you want to go ramen? It closes in a half hour, or do you want to go to one of my favorite places in the city? And I'm like, I want to go to one of your favorite places in the city.
Hell yeah.
That's gonna be open for 3 hours.
Yeah.
And you were like, I'm gonna ask you again. I'm like, the choice is clear, Daniel.
And the food was phenomenal.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's a little pricey, but yeah, it's like they were gonna give us like a little table by the bar, and I was like,
Yeah.
nah,
Yeah,
if he's gonna join us with friends, there's no way we. So I just asked him to bring us downstairs to the secret passage.
Yeah, the universal
Right.
language of no.
Yeah.
Same in Spanish as it is in English.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's amazing. The food. It's a Peruvian restaurant, just to let you guys know.
And that's all the hints you're gonna get.
Yep.
But a lot of people don't even think of like Peruvian restaurants. It's man, I just love Peruvian food, and when it's well done, it's incredible.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
phenomenal.
I ate the
Yeah.
biggest shrimp I ever ate. In
I
my
know,
life.
right?
Yeah.
You're like, how do you eat this? You got to cut the head off. Like what?
It was so good. It was fun. It was definitely fun. And the other great thing about being in New York is they're not chains technically, but some of these restaurants, when they're
Right.
more profitable, they'll open
Yeah.
1 or 2. So I get to my apartment, my brand new apartment, finally moved in. Everything's settled. It's amazing. It's fantastic. I love it. I love the area. And I'm talking to my new roommate, and I go, "Hey man, where's the food at around here? Like what?" And he goes, "Well, I'm kind of a foodie, so." And I was like, "Oh, watch out." And he said, "There's this
We're
restaurant."
so afraid of saying it.
Well, I'm not going to
He
say it.
said that word.
He said, but he was like, "Oh, there's this really
He
good
said it.
Peruvian
He
restaurant."
said it twice.
And then he said, he said the name, and I go,
That's an inside joke.
I was, yeah.
No one will ever get it.
I was
But it's
like,
a hint.
I
It's a
like
hint.
it that
It's a
way.
hint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was like, "Yeah, it's like 2 blocks away," and I was like, "Get the fuck out of here!"
Yeah.
Like I just ate there. It's so good. So now
Yeah.
that's the new date spot.
And that's way too many hints for all y'all motherfuckers.
Right.
Yeah, we're done.
We'll see you there. The smart people. We'll see you there. Yeah. such a New York night for me because
Yeah.
I got out of Port Authority, and anytime you're in the Broadway area, you feel like you're in the center of the universe.
Yeah.
Not always in a good way, but
No.
shit is just happening. It's like Blade Runner. There's shit happen over the top of you.
Yeah.
You know, it feels like the Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Right.
That type of feeling. And I saw like just 12 cops pounce on this guy, and it was a white guy, so they were civil. But it was so funny to watch like 12 guys like rush on this guy, and then it's a busy sidewalk and just
Right.
nobody
Nobody
gives a shit.
Yeah.
Not even me. We're all watching it like it's a commercial on the
Yeah.
big screen in Times Square.
Like you're watching Blade Runner.
Yeah. And the guy was so belligerent. You're like, yeah, it's this guy's fault. So you don't get upset.
Yeah.
Nobody even had their
Right.
cameras out because they could tell this guy like was disrupting fucking Port Authority.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, can you really disrupt Port Authority?
That thing's a mess.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and Albany Greyhound bus station.
Oh, dude, Greyhound stations in general are
Did you see?
insanity. I've done Cleveland, baby.
I've
Lived my life.
we did the Borgata not too long ago.
Yes.
So the Borgata, there's my wife needed the car, so I'm like, I'm gonna have to take the bus.
Yeah.
It's like I promised myself I'll never take another Greyhound. I had to, so I take the bus.
Can we get into why the bus is so bad? I used to do a podcast called Roadhead, so I know all
Okay.
about this
Right,
stuff.
right.
No, the reason why Greyhound bus to Atlantic City is so bad is because you might buy a ticket, but that doesn't mean you're getting on the bus.
Right.
You have to go and fight for the seat that you paid for. And you might not get on.
Yeah.
And they might cancel that bus, too. They're into canceling buses.
So what's insane is that now they don't even stop at the Greyhound bus station because it's been overtaken by the homeless, the drunks. So they say, we're going to drop you off at the hotel. I'm like, what? It's like, they don't even stop at the bus station.
And it's not your hotel,
there's
but we'll be
valleys. No, right.
dropping you off
Right,
here. Yeah.
right. So there's like 3 stops, and then you got to take the what's it called, the jitney?
Something.
Jesus Christ.
The Uber,
so,
the
right,
Jitsi,
right,
the
right,
whatever.
right. So, but it's that bad that you can't. The station is not even usable.
Yeah.
It's-
A couple of things I have to tell you.
Yeah.
One, I've got this trip hacked, which is it takes longer, but this is the way to do it.
Atlantic City.
Atlantic City,
Okay.
you take a train to Philly and then take a train to Atlantic City from Philly. No bus.
Really?
No more buses.
How long does it take you?
It takes you about 4 hours with the
Right.
transfer. But guess what?
Right.
You got an Amtrak ticket.
Yeah.
You're getting on that goddamn
Yeah.
train. That's how
Right.
it is. And you got these great train stations, and you're never at that Greyhound bus station in Atlantic City.
So from Philly, you take.
New Jersey Transit, but you can buy it through Amtrak.
How much is the cost of the whole thing?
It's more expensive than a Greyhound. It's also
More
a
expensive.
livable decision.
Right.
You
right,
know?
right.
You bring a
You
book.
can get some work done. Right.
Yeah. You can probably
That's
read
smart.
about 20 pages of Don Quixote in about
Yeah,
4
right,
hours.
right. Which is yeah, because I always feel like I'm looking over my shoulder.
Yeah,
the
you
bus.
will be.
You
yeah.
are.
And the only way to
you
feel
like that 'cause
safe,
you are.
the only way to feel safe is you sit all the way in the back, but that's where the bathroom is.
Yeah.
So you don't want to smell all.
My
that shit.
favorite is when like you get on the Greyhound bus and people sit in the aisle with the window seat empty. Like, yeah, you can't get in my luxury suite.
Right.
my
right,
first
right,
class
right,
ticket.
right,
It's
right,
like,
right,
dude,
right.
who the fuck
Yeah,
do you
yeah,
think
yeah,
you
yeah,
are?
Yeah.
But I was so wary of this Atlantic City bus station that one night I was working in Atlantic City in January, the end of January, maybe early February, cold as shit. And I'm like, I'm going to take the 1 a.m. bus to New York City after the show at the Borgata.
Ooh,
And
audacious.
I knew it was a risk. I
That
got
is
there.
Crazy.
I stood up, but it was great. I'm standing outside by myself and at the bus station, and I'm like, I'm the only one in line.
Yeah.
I'm the only one in line. This is going to be fucking awesome. And then the loudspeaker comes on like, yeah, the 1 a.m. bus is canceled. And I'm like, you
No.
motherfuckers. But guess what? I didn't trust this place. So I didn't check out of the hotel room. So I got right back in the Uber and I
Oh,
got
that's
right
smart.
back in bed.
Wow.
Fuck you, AC.
Right.
You cannot destroy me. I am an experienced veteran. I know what I'm doing. You never check out of the hotel. You call the next day.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
exactly.
I've
right,
checked
right,
out.
Right,
Checked
right,
out,
right,
yeah.
right.
That's something I've learned thanks to like roadheads and just being a kid. when podcasting was first coming up. It's actually interesting because a lot of younger comics and like people even younger than me have been able to take the experiences from older comics that they've heard on podcasts, and we've used that to our benefit. So like, even when I could barely get a credit card because my credit wasn't that great, I could barely get it, and I had to put like $300 down, and it was basically like a gift card.
I've been there, yeah.
But the card I did it with was a card that has miles, because I always heard all these comics talking about like I didn't get miles until I got older and started making money and stuff. So I was like, well, let me get a card that has miles.
Yeah.
So now it's one of those things where, thanks to hearing all of your guys' war stories and some of the other comics' war stories from like 10 years ago, now like if I have to go somewhere, it's like, oh, I've got I'll just fly.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where, thanks to podcasting and stuff, I was kind of like, oh, I don't even care if I'm not even traveling yet for comedy. I need to get a card that can accrue miles.
Start stacking it up.
Right.
Yeah. So in that way, when someone's like, oh, do you want to come out to Austin to do this show? I'm like, just fucking throw it on the miles, baby. Let's go.
Yeah.
And that's something that because hearing some of the, like, I've been listening to Matt for a decade. So hear some of the stories about like Greyhounds and like when Roadheads came out, some of those stories, I was like, I don't ever want to take a bus ever if I don't have to.
Yeah, it's still up if anybody wants to listen to Roadhead.
I still have it on my phone.
Yeah. It used to be word of mouth. I remember I got my first road gig in Albuquerque in 2000. And my friend Brett Gilbert, somebody I used to do open mics in LA with, but he had a road career up north in San Francisco. He goes, when you're in the comedy condo, he's like, don't use any of the food that's already there.
Yeah.
Right.
No condiments, no nothing.
Nothing.
He goes, he's like, comics will fucking jerk off in it, piss in it. You name it. You can take it from there.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there like,
But
are you serious?
I always wondered if that was an urban legend. The whole
It's
like,
both. It's like, one guy did it one time, but do you want to be the one statistic that drinks the fucking
It's
cum
like
mayonnaise?
when you see a sign that says like, don't have sex with the alligators. You're like, somebody had sex with the alligator.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Somebody.
Right. So BYOM, bring your own mayo. It might not keep, but bring it anyway.
Oh, man.
But no, but what was the best part of, just to go back to your show very quickly, I loved how much I got to learn about you, man.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
You know what I mean? I had no clue that you went through all that stuff.
Yeah.
Especially the jail, the that's insane, those stories.
Well, and it was one of those things, and I know I've talked about it before, but I would tell these stories like waiting to go on stage and stuff, and people are like, that's nuts, that's crazy. And then I'd be like, oh, I got something here. And then as soon as I went on stage, like I'd try and tell the story again, and it would just fall flat, because it's not, again, talking about sobriety is not something you can do it. Obviously, there's a lot of comics that do it, but as someone, I'm not as good as those comics, not yet at least. So it's been difficult for me. I told a buddy of mine this. He goes, oh, I heard you did a one-man show. And I said, yeah, trying to make some of these traumatic stories funny was just too hard. So I just punted on the whole thing. And I was like, I'll just bill it as a one-man show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's definitely something where people were like, oh, I knew some of those stories, but to hear them all together, you're kind of like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, it's also funny too, because like going through your life, I'm just thinking about you going through your life. Eventually it'll come out that you've been to jail, and you've been to jail because you didn't wear your seatbelt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is a fucking bitch.
God, that's why it's so funny too, because it's like, and the best part about that story is the fact that I did grow up in a house where, like, my parents wouldn't even start the car unless everyone was wearing a seatbelt. And then I'm living at this halfway house. I'm trying to get sober, and I'm like, fuck it, no one else is wearing a seatbelt. Let's go.
Yeah.
And then we get pulled over for not wearing seatbelts. Oh, guess who has a warrant?
Let's go, ... to jail. I crashed the windshield into a cell.
God, it was nuts. But I thank you guys so much for coming.
No,
it was fun.
It was great, man. I look forward to seeing the show again and seeing it.
Yeah, and that's the thing
seeing
too.
It when it finds another venue. And
we're gonna send it out to theaters and producers and different people, because that's the crazy thing about show business and entertainment in general. And you guys know this, and I'm sure a lot of the listeners know this, but it's all especially in 2023. It's all on you until it isn't.
Yeah. So
it's all like, I paid for everything. I did everything myself out of my own pocket. And then, one day someone might be like, I really like this. Let's put it on at my theater. And then all of a sudden I'm not incurring any cost. In fact, I'm getting paid to do it.
Right. Yeah.
And it can just switch just like that.
Yeah. It's funny. Everything's on spec.
Yeah.
we're what 4 figures into this podcast now.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's just, and that's funny too, because I know you and I have talked about it, and I'm sure Daniel remembers, but like, 10, 15 years ago, they would just be like, we're going to give you, we saw this on Entourage, we're going to give you a holding deal. And you're like, wait, what?
That's the American dream.
We're going to give you $250,000 to not do anything.
I knew so many people that had that in LA and around the
so
late
nuts.
90s, 2000. And it was almost like, I remember Todd Glass was driving me home from a gig one time, and he's like, yeah, you're probably going to have to quit that job, man. You're going to get a holding deal. You're going to have to write a script. And I was like, yeah, he was saying it like it was a bad thing. You're going to have to quit that job. I'm like, that's all I want out of life.
Yeah.
I mean, my priorities were fucked back then. I wanted to not be an office worker even more than I wanted to be a comedian.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
It was about what I didn't want to be.
Well,
sometimes.
when you're in that job, sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard, because that's what I'm going through now.
Right.
It's like I took 10 days off for the show and for the move and everything,
Yeah.
and I'm like, I got to go back.
Then there's times that you like daydream about having the job. You're like, well, I didn't have to fucking work in
When your flight gets delayed
Lexington,
or canceled or
Kentucky
yeah.
or something. I could just go do a show in LA.
Yeah.
No pressure.
At
Right.
all.
Yeah.
God. Oh man. We're hoping that it's gonna take off.
Let's get on. Didn't we have some stuff we wanted to to with?
Yeah. Matt completed Dry January.
Well, I did that.
Oh,
I'm in
which
the
is
bonus round right
amazing.
now. Yesterday, my wife was like, "You gonna have a beer?" I'm like, "Nah."
Yeah.
Yo,
Yeah.
it's crazy because when we were at the theater, you were tempted to next time I feel like it.
Yeah,
It's just
but
so cool
I
that
didn't.
you overcame that.
But I didn't feel like it yesterday.
That's so cool.
I mean, it's gonna be like I'm not fighting it.
Mhm.
I'm happy with what I did, and the next time I
Going with the
maybe
flow.
not the next time, but the next time it makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a 16-ounce draft beer. That's right in the middle of the 1 and 2.
Mhm.
But I kind of want to like ride it out because every day is like a new record.
So
that's a
it's
good
like
feeling.
victory, of
Yeah.
course.
Hell yeah.
I'm doing the same thing with coffee. Not as long as you, but
Yeah.
it's been a good 2 weeks of no.
Yeah,
coffee.
I wanted to add, because you mentioned that last time we recorded. Have you noticed any like caffeine withdrawals or when you first stopped it?
Usually when I usually do. I usually have
Like headaches and stuff, right?
crazy headaches.
Yeah.
But the whole family got sick, so I got so sick I came down with like some sort of virus, a stomach virus, and so I wasn't eating the whole day. For like a day and a half, I wasn't eating. So forget coffee. And then when I started feeling better, I was like, it's my stomach's still delicate. Let's just not play with it. So it was like 2-3 days no coffee, and I'm like, let's just ride the wave.
Yeah.
And it felt great. It feels good to. Coffee is amazing in the morning when you have one coffee and you're writing.
Yeah.
That puts you in such a great zone. But then when you're on to your second coffee and then you start like shaking a little bit and your heart starts racing, and then the afternoon when you start crashing,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa, what is happening?
Yeah, it is
to my
great,
body?
isn't it?
Yeah, right.
We went to a diner when my family was in town. We went to a diner on Tuesday for breakfast, and most of the diners that I go to are like they're New York diners. This is in Times Square though, so they were like way overstaffed because it's busy all the time and stuff. So I didn't notice, because a lot of times at my diner I'll drink a coffee and then it's a while before anyone comes back around, and then I'm like, oh no, I'm okay. This one they were just refilling it. Like I wasn't paying it. Like you're talking and then just filling it up.
Right.
I went through 4 cups of coffee.
Yeah.
I thought my heart was gonna explode.
Oh yeah.
Like we left and I was like, I'm gonna throw up. Like I don't
Yeah.
feel good. Like what happened? And I was like, oh yeah, she just kept pouring coffee and I just kept drinking it
Right.
like a fucking addict, man.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
just
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, and
you have to though when they refill it. You
yeah.
kind of
You
have
can't
to.
Right.
leave it.
yeah, and you don't. Yeah,
I felt like I was gonna throw up.
but we had this conversation, I think, like last week after the podcast, and I wanted to talk about this. I think that it's really cool that I kind of had like this little epiphany of what I kind of, for the first time, I worded the definition of happiness differently, and I found that it's embracing discomfort. So for the last 2 weeks, I've been embracing, and again, embracing as opposed to accepting,
Right.
but really embracing what makes you uncomfortable. And it made me, uncomfortable not to drink coffee. It makes me uncomfortable to not watch television at night. It makes me uncomfortable to sit down, to lie down and read, as opposed to watch TV with my wife. it makes me uncomfortable to exercise daily.
Mhm.
And everything that creates discomfort, I'm kind of like rewiring my brain to enjoy the discomfort. And when I enjoy the discomfort, it becomes so much easier to overcome anything and just do anything. It's like, I feel a little off. I feel a little hungry. I'm like, hey, why don't you just enjoy not eating late at night, junk food? You know, enjoy it. Enjoy this weird sensation. And something chemically, I think, is happening in my brain where I don't know if it's like a way of self-torturing myself. In some ways it is, but it's kind of like really trying to enjoy and being cool with whatever is, as opposed to just always finding comfort. Like, that's why I left Montreal. I left Montreal because I was so comfortable with comedy there. You know, I had done the festival, I had the headline, I'd done it in English and French, and I hit a ceiling, and I'm like, I could just be, you know, a comic that just stays there forever and becomes a big fish, or just get completely uncomfortable. Right.
Yeah.
And that's what happens to me. I get, when I get too comfortable, I get uncomfortable. And that really propels me and pushes us all to change, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It could be there could be a tipping point or a catalyst in your life, like in your case. But what a different feeling, man, when you just embrace what makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah, I have a hard time with it, but I do it anyway. Like let me tell you something about discomfort. My exercise is swimming and just jumping into that pool, a public pool that they don't heat or anything.
Ooh,
You're just
great.
like, what
That's
the
great.
fuck am I doing with my life?
Great. That's a great feeling.
I don't think so.
No. No,
but I do it.
No, when you're
I
swimming.
do it anyway. Once I start swimming, and the air, I start to get in a little oxygen deficit. And you feel like, because I have a lot of tension in my body, just because I think about shit too much. And this is something I'm becoming aware of, is like, listen to your body. But anyways, this is just a good way to get all the energy out of your body and like get those lungs. You're not breathing when you're swimming. You're just breathing like crazy, breathing, and you're just wearing out all that nervous energy. One discomfort that I did embrace is when I did start the dry January, I felt like really off, a lot like when you would quit coffee. And I knew it was good for me, and so it felt good, you know. And I can also do it with hunger. If it's too late at night and I know I shouldn't eat, I can enjoy whatever is happening in my stomach.
Yeah,
like that. Like, it's just eating. Like, okay, well, now we have to go to the reserves. I'm like, yeah, you go to the reserves. Because we got a lot of that shit. Stomach. You don't need anything else.
Right.
That's the one thing. I'm great. It's interesting you say embracing the discomfort. Like when I have because I work out a lot, and when I have a really hard workout and I wake up and I'm sore the next day, like I hear people be like, "Oh, I went to the gym, but I was in so much pain the next day," and I'm like,
"That feels great."
I love it. I
love that shit.
Yeah. But
it's rewarding.
It's the food. And this happened last night. Walked out of my building to smoke a cigarette, 11:45. Literally on the other side of the street, it's a place called Candy Shop. Open 24 hours. It's just a convenience store, but it's a convenience store.
Here comes your second one-man show.
It's a convenience
your
store.
Your addiction to candy.
It's a convenience store for stoners. There's just like cakes and candies, and it's literally like you walk in and you think bodega. And
I want to describe this to the listeners who don't live in New York City.
Oh yeah,
all over. Popping up are essentially weed shops that don't sell weed.
Yeah.
They have pipes,
Delta 8,
bongs, fake weed.
Yeah.
And like all the shit that stoners like to eat.
Yeah.
And stoners like to eat salty snacks and sweet candy, but they also like off-brands or shit from Japan.
There's a lot of Japanese ones.
Right.
Like sushi flavored Doritos and stuff like that.
And the weirdest thing is the lights are cranking in there.
Oh, yeah. It's super bright.
And I guess it has to do with the colors or something. But to me, that
is odd.
I would like the speakeasy vibe at my stoner. I never go into these shops.
Right.
I like weed. I don't like these shops.
Yeah.
But because the average bodega is just fine. But this is calling you.
Yeah, so I walk out to smoke a cigarette, and it's literally like I come out of the plaza level, like the basement level, and I come out, and it's like just right there. and it's hard to describe because it's almost a blend of the weed shop and a bodega. Because you walk in and there's not like the glass casing with the pipes, but there is smoking stuff. But it's not like set up like the smoke shops are like very like beautiful the way they're set up and all the glasses everywhere and stuff. This you literally walk in and it's like there's a few pipes, there's a few like fake weed things, and then there's just like cookies and cakes and candies and I walk out and and I look at it and I go, it's fucking 11:30 at night. Do not take your fat ass over there and buy snacks. But I was like, I'm so hungry. And I walked in, I was like, let me just see what they have.
Huge mistake. What'd you get?
I got 4. Because I'm a big pastry guy.
That's just the tip of eating.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna stick the tip in.
Yeah, just for a second, just to see how it feels. I walk in and I got 4 different. I'm a big pastry guy, so they have these, those in New York, and I'm sure in a lot of places they like make them fresh and then they package them and then they send them out to these stores. So they're homemade, but they're not really. So I got an almond croissant.
Oh God!
And they're like this big, and I got a cherry and cheese Danish, and then I got a chocolate croissant, and then I got a blueberry and cheese Danish.
Oh, that's a lot of stuff.
Because I thought, I'll have one of these tonight, and then I'll have another one for breakfast, and then. And then the guy, and it's run super. I love it because it's run like a little sketchy.
Yeah.
He just looks at everything, and I pull out my wallet, and he goes, "Card?" And I said, "No, I was gonna pay cash." And he goes, $10. And
Right,
like, okay.
right. The cash deal.
Yeah.
Right.
So I
love
threw
that.
$10, and then I get home. I eat one walking back to the elevator, and this is fucking across the street. Get in the elevator, open another one. By the time I got home, I ate the other 2, and I was like,
"See, I don't eat.
I
don't eat and walk.
Yeah.
I don't eat and do anything. I do eat and
Yeah.
watch television. That's not exactly Buddhist. But I decided like 30 years ago, I don't do anything else while I eat.
that's
even
smart.
even smoke when I used to smoke cigarettes.
Yeah,
I don't do anything when I smoke a cigarette.
I
I try to do one thing at a time.
that's smart. That's really smart because when you're doing other things, especially while I'm eating these sugary, carb-filled
Yeah.
things, you don't realize like
You're
eating
unaware.
it. Yeah,
You're unaware.
and I got home.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've already eaten 2 of these. It's across the street.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not even that far of a
Yeah.
walk.
As soon as that "don't walk" sign came up, you're like,
I
"Well,
guess I'm
time for a snack."
So
There's no way I can wait 7 minutes for this.
that is the one discomfort I need to get better at is
Right.
late night eating.
A trick that really works for me is a spoon of peanut butter.
Really?
Oh man.
Oh, all that stuff.
Yo,
I keep
just a spoon.
a spoon, and you might go back for a second or a third, but just the idea that you're getting out a fresh spoon and you're eating that one thing, and then you're going to take a little bit of time
Yeah.
between the next
Yeah.
one, you just kind of taper off because your stomach does get full very easily.
It does.
You
but
know, your brain gets the message way too late,
I
but
felt
your
sick.
stomach doesn't need
Yeah.
much.
By
Yeah.
the time I was getting ready, like going
Yeah.
to bed, I was like, I'm just full of carbs and sugar, and like I
Yeah.
felt sick.
And you feel guilty,
Yeah.
and then but you can't bring the jar with you. You take
Oh,
the
yeah, you put
spoon,
it back.
You put it back. You walk back to the living room. Whatever you do, you just have that spoon alone,
Yeah.
dude.
I gotta
Life
start doing
changing.
that. I'm gonna
Life
do that.
changing.
I do the same thing with peanuts too, but peanut butter is way better because you can't walk around the house with peanut butter
Yeah.
in your hand. It's just like the one spoon.
Yeah.
That's super smart because I was trying to. Bird talked about when he was trying to lose weight for the movie. He was like, "Oh, when it's late at night and I can't eat, I'll just drink water until I'm full, because then you
Yeah, but then you don't want to pee all the time.
But
in
well,
the
and my
middle
big
of the
thing
night.
is like because I drink so much water on a daily basis anyway. To me, I'm just like I do this like I'm still hungry. Like this isn't fucking doing anything.
Yeah.
So the peanut butter I got to try because that's the one thing is when I don't eat at night, I literally look like a different person. Like people are like you look
Right.
great, and it's
Yeah.
like it'll be like a week of not eating at night. But because I work in the service industry, because of comedy, we're always catch ourselves eating late night.
Yeah.
And then you wake up and you're bloated and you're tired and you're achy.
What I do when I'm really hungry, late at night, and if I do cheat, if I do eat a meal, I'll make sure to not have my next meal until 3 in the following
Yeah.
day. Like I'll wait.
Burn it off.
Yeah, of course.
I just go by hunger. Like I
Yeah,
won't
you listen to your
sometimes.
body.
I sometimes won't even eat until like 2 p.m.
Well, that's the other thing too is I forget because I wake up and I do my morning ritual, which is the green shake, and then I get ready, I go to the gym. And then I get home from the gym. I drink a protein shake. And then a lot of times, I won't eat until almost 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And then sometimes if I'm doing mics and running around and doing podcasts, I'll forget to eat. So then it's 10 o'clock at night and I go, oh, I forgot to eat today. Yeah. And then I'm eating like a madman because I didn't eat all day. I worked out earlier in the day and now it's 10 o'clock at night. And then I go to bed with like a full pizza and like 3 cannolis in my stomach. And I'm like, oh, this is healthy.
I knew I became an adult probably a couple weeks ago, or maybe even a month or 2 ago, when I got stoned and ate vegetables. I was like, I've done it. I hijacked the system.
Yeah. You've reached the boss level.
And it works when you're stoned too, because you can feel,
delicious.
You can taste it better. And it makes you feel
crunch,
good too.
Yeah.
Right. You don't realize how good vegetables actually make you feel almost instantly as it's speeding through your arteries and your veins or however it works.
That's
balances out the weed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you eat good, you feel good, man.
Yeah. And when you eat bad, you feel good too.
In the moment, and then after, I'm like, I'm gonna go throw up. This is
and
gross.
then there's the judgment too. Like, how could you?
Yeah.
How could you do that? I have talks with myself when I'm stoned. So it's like 1 trip to the kitchen, fine. 2 trips to the kitchen, okay. When I get the urge for the 3rd trip, I go, you dumb motherfucker.
Yeah.
You are stoned on marijuana,
right?
And it's not going to make you feel any better. And all you really want is water, anyways.
Right?
Why don't you go get some water?
Right.
That's smart.
I say it with more love because I'm stoned.
Yeah.
But I do have a talk with myself, and it does. I have that kind of willpower.
Yeah.
I don't have great willpower. I don't diet. Like I said, I eat when I want. I'm not in perfect shape, but I do exercise every day, and I am conscious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I got going for me. I actually think about it. You know?
Mine goes the other way. I think about it and then I do it anyway, and then I'm like, you piece of shit.
It's still better than nothing.
Yeah.
There's people that just can't stop all day long. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah, that's I mean, we see it all the time, but that's one thing like at the restaurant where I'm just like, dude, like come on, dude. Like relax a little.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Take
feel
it home.
I feel so good when I don't eat bread or
pasta.
When I cut carbs.
It inflames your joints. It's so bad for you.
You have so much more energy.
I eat it all the time.
I would know. I eat it constantly.
Yeah.
But it does give you it makes you feel like you have more energy when you're working out.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
But it's the bad kind of energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not.
It's like that. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. It's not. It doesn't feel like it's clean.
Right.
It feels almost like you're burning like fucking
fuel
coal.
into your body.
Yeah.
You can also feel the fat materialize in about 8 minutes.
Oh yeah.
You're like,
Yeah.
We get bloated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you guys? I wanted to shift real quick because we've been putting it off for a while. You've already read Don Quixote?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I'm in the process.
I am.
Where are we?
So for those that don't know, we're reading Don Quixote
that was
as a
Daniel's
group.
challenge.
We are saying on this.
What's funny is that it was my personal challenge, but then you made it our challenge.
Yeah, it's our challenge.
All right, let's do it.
Oh man, I'm pissed we did that because
Yo.
I can't get through even like the
Page 1.
introduction. I started reading the first page because I usually skip
Oh, you
the
do?
introductions, and I started reading it, and I didn't even understand the footnotes. And then I went back to read the introduction, and I'm having a hard time understanding that. And then every time I see you pull out a different book, and you're like, yo, I'm reading this book, the Rick Rubin book. You can't get it anywhere. And I'm like, why are we reading Don Quixote when you keep teasing me with these good books, man? And I understand the importance of reading Don Quixote. It's referenced in society in ways I don't even know or I don't even recognize. It's actually a part of universal culture.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But the strange part of that is it's from so long ago that every sentence needs to be explained. Like mutton used to be a more expensive type of meat.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
But it's like reading Shakespeare. It's like you read the first 2 pages, 3 pages, like, oh man, I can't do this. But then your brain gets the rhythm, gets the language. A lot of people think Shakespeare is old English, but it's actually considered modern English. And
Billy Shake?
Yeah, and yeah, it's a question. It's like watching it's like watching The Office. It takes like 3-4 episodes to get into the rhythm.
Right.
The original one.
It's like working in an office.
Yeah. So, but your brain will get it very quickly.
Yeah.
You just got to go through like 3-4 pages.
I like it. I'm like 50 pages in. It's
Yeah.
way more violent than I
50?
thought it would
Oh,
be.
it's super violent.
And I was-
and
like,
absurd and,
yeah.
and funny.
Like the first story where he goes to the inn and he thinks it's a castle because he's delusional, and then like he's doing something and he like it literally says like, you know, with all his might like hit this guy in the head and it broke into, you know, 4 pieces, and I was like, he just bashed this guy's brains in.
Sure.
Like, does anyone else?
Yeah.
That wasn't
Yeah.
a crime.
I was like, is anyone else seeing this?
What time is the book? What is it? The
Yeah.
1700s, 1600s? What is it? Medieval times?
1755
Yes. Really? I
or
thought it was earlier.
1577. It's
15.
one of those.
15. I think it's 15.
all right.
I think
Okay.
it's 15. But yeah, it's about this delusional guy who's so delusional, who's so off that he just doesn't care and finds the courage to.
Literally sold
yeah.
a bunch of his land.
I got to get past my anger on this book because I'm getting
as soon as you
getting
got it,
so
you sent
I'm
me a
getting
text
so
message
pissed at
saying,
it.
Yo.
I'm like
I didn't know what it was. I was like, what
know.
is that?
no, I'm like they translated this book and it's still not fucking translated.
Yeah.
I still don't understand it.
Like give me a fucking new translation.
Yeah. It's ask ChatGPT to translate it for you. But it's really worth it, man.
No,
It's
I'm gonna
really
because
worth
I
it.
got to start reading anyways because I can't sleep because I watch TV late at night.
Yeah.
That's
listen,
the thing.
Listen
Yeah.
to
Blue light.
music, all that bullshit. Anything that my phone or my TV can do is going to be bad for my sleep. And Don Quixote is going to be marvelous for my sleep because I'll read one page
right.
every
Fall
15
asleep.
minutes, and then I'll be like, all right, I'm going to rest my eyes.
Yeah.
And then I'll get back into it, and I'll be asleep in no time.
But you know what helps me too? Because if you're struggling with that, I've been struggling with that too. It's,
Adderall.
late night television. And eating. I've been doing this, and this helps. I do it just on weekends. I'll allow myself to have that croissant or that fondue or binge watch
or those
late at
8
night.
croissants.
Right.
Yeah.
but
It was
but
full.
it makes a difference when you because one, it feels rewarding, and two, you stay disciplined throughout the week, and man, God, does it change your energy in the morning
Yeah.
when you don't watch television, when you're not on your phone, when you go to bed early. Talk about listening to your body, man. It's like
Yeah.
how many times do we feel so tired? I know I do. I feel so tired, but I won't go to bed.
Yep.
And I'm not sure if I had this discussion with you, but I think it's or on the podcast, but it's my fear of dying. I think that I don't want the day to
Oh,
end.
right. You
Yeah.
did
I don't
mention that.
I don't want the day to end, so
Yeah.
I'll just do something comfortably to just prolong it. But then it shoots my next morning. So now what I've been doing is like, Danny, if you're feeling tired now, just go to bed. Don't fight it. I wake up earlier. I have more energy. I don't eat late at night.
Yep.
And then when I do want to do that, I'll keep it for a weekend, or if I'm not gigging. But yeah, what a difference, man.
Do you guys
What
know
a
that
difference.
Seinfeld bit? It was actually on the sitcom.
Kramer,
What-
listen to your body.
No, it's night guy versus morning guy. You're two different people.
Oh yeah.
Night guy stays up late.
Right.
He eats junk food. He's like, oh, it's getting late. Who cares? That's morning guy's
Guy's problem.
problem.
Yeah.
And then morning guy wakes up and he's so pissed at night guy.
Right.
I'm butchering this joke, but the premise is
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's the future. I say it all the time. That's future Brennan's problem. Future Brennan
Yeah.
will deal with that. And then when future Brennan gets here, he's like, "The fuck's wrong with past Brennan, man?"
Oh, I'm always pissed at past Matt.
Yeah.
The fuck were you thinking?
I woke up this morning pissed off at past Brennan.
Yeah.
You literally didn't even have to go into that store, man.
Right.
You
Yeah,
should've
Right.
just turned around
That's
and
a
gone
really,
inside.
really, really great analogy, man. Like the future and past. I'm really gonna apply that because it's true. You're really gonna face that future self.
Yeah,
That's a really good trick.
yeah. I got it. Seinfeld. man.
Well, the best way to hack that is to like leave $20 bills around the apartment, and then when you find it, you go, "Oh, past Matt is a swell guy." I think that's going to do it for us today on the Power of How. Rate and review.
Yes.
Subscribe.
The
Follow
Power
us.
of How podcast everywhere.
Yeah, at the Power of How podcast on all your social media. And thanks for
Videos on
listening.
YouTube.
Yeah, and get your shit together. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding.
Thank you, everybody, so much for listening.
Thanks for listening to The Power of How. Music by Daniel Torado. Artwork by Nelson Diaz. Follow us on all the social medias at The Power of How Podcast. Rate, review, and subscribe, and check us out at patreon.com/The Power of How Podcast. Send us some positive vibes in the form of U.S. currency. See you next week, everybody.